Hello, everybody. Well, this is Ezekiel Johnson. You're saying now, Zeke, you don't look the same as you always do. Hey, I have to dress up once in a while when I go into town. I don't do too bad of a job now, do I? Well, I got some things to share with you today. Mr. Johnson has told me that on the last things that we talked about, you're going to be having a quiz on that. That's right, section 1 and 2. So you need to get on that site that he gave you. It has all the information on there, so I don't have to tell it to you because you know what? Sometimes I forget. So anyway, we're going to talk today on section 3 of chapter 10. So if you can go to chapter 10, section 3, we're going to be talking about things that a lot of people don't like to talk about, and that's political parties. We're going to talk about how they really started, right? And what did George Washington say about political parties? Beware of decisive political parties. It will destroy this country. Can you imagine that? They would destroy this country. Look what's been happening, people. Where y'all been? Have you been watching TV? Oh, well, there's a lot of things going on out there. So, you mind if I get my spectacles? Because I'm in a bunker right now. There's a tremendous storm happening outside, and I couldn't be outside in our usual place. So, I'm in, well, I can't tell you where I'm at. It's confidential, but it is underground. So, I have to get my spectacles because I can't see. It's too dark in here. Do I look sophisticated? I know I should run for office or something. I could do something, couldn't I? Well, let me read a little bit from this here. Washington took office for his first term. Everything seemed to be going roughly okay. I mean, there was a lot of problems, and he overcame the problems, and he had a really good cabinet of people working with him. Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson, those two boys just did not like each other. They just did not, and they fought over everything. They probably even fought over lunch, even though they weren't buying it. But anyway, uh, Washington had no reason to worry because his two closest advisors, Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, they were still with him, even though they disagreed. They were still with him, and he had a lot of advice coming from what they were saying. But things started to happen right underneath Washington's nose. I'm sure it wasn't even underneath his nose. I'm sure that he was pretty smart about it. And I know, if I know General Washington, he is a smart man, and he knows everything that's going on. Kind of like your teacher, Mr. Johnson, always knows what's going on, doesn't he? Yeah, he does. So anyway, on most issues, Hamilton and Jefferson disagreed very sharply on things. And the group that Hamilton was split off and run would be called Federalists. Now, we've heard that name before. Haven't we heard the name Federalists before? Yes, we have. And Federalists wanted a large government, and we're going to go through a lot of things that they wanted. But as he ran the Federalists, Thomas Jefferson was basically forming a group called the Democrat Republicans. So I want you to understand what that word is, okay? So let's go back. First of all, the Federalists, we already know what they were, and we know what they did, and we know that they wrote the Federalist Papers and did things like that, right? All right. Well, now this other group is not just the anti-Federalists. They call themselves Democratic Republicans. Boy, isn't that an oxymoron today? A Democrat Republican? How can you be a Democrat and Republican at the same time? I think they call that an American. Oh, that's right. That's what I am. I'm just an American, okay? So the Democrat Republicans, sometimes called Republicans, though, nothing to do with what we got going on today. All right, nothing to what we got on today. The two parties reflected their leaders' personalities in a lot of ways. Now, let me tell you why. Because Hamilton was a go-getter. He really was. He was focused. He was very sharp-witted. He was very ambitious, where Jefferson was a little bit of the opposite. Now, it wasn't that he wasn't focused. He was focused, but he just didn't like big crowds. He didn't like to spread his word out there too much by vocalizing it. He'd rather write it all down. Oh, yeah, he was a writer, and he was thinking, and that brain of his never stopped. It just never stopped, okay? So he was very laid back, but he had an idea on how he wanted things to go. More states' rights and not government rights. Not the government running things, but the states running things. Where Hamilton thought the opposite. We think the government should run a lot more things and the states should lay low. They should lay low. Well, that's going to cause a problem. Okay. Now, Jefferson would end up becoming uh, Washington's right-hand man, to tell you the truth. I mean, really, Alexander Hamilton was as far as financial was, but Jefferson um, had common sense, and he was closer to Washington's age. But Washington didn't choose one over the other. Okay, even though it seemed like Jefferson would be his right-hand man, but really, being Secretary of State, he was not in the country a lot. But Washington liked both these boys. All right, I mean, he was friends with them both. Now, Alexander Hamilton's from New York and Jefferson's from Virginia, so there's a little kinship there with the Virginians, but they both had something to bring to the table. You understand? They both had something to bring to the table, and Washington valued both of their comments on anything that he had to ask. So they were both good. So let's go to this. The Federalists and the Democrat Republicans were the first national political parties. So write that down. All right. The Federalists and the Democratic Republicans were the very first national political parties. Now, what do you think, Tom, or what do you think President Washington thought about this? He didn't like it. He didn't like it at all, because there would be a division in this country from that moment on until right here today. There's a division. Now, everybody's got a right to their opinions, and that's good. I believe that too. It's just when they get a little bit too muddy in the waters, okay? Just a little bit too nasty for some people's taste. And this eventually is going to happen. You know that. It's going to happen all along the way, because people like to win. They don't like to lose. We like to win, right? So the Constitution made no provisions for political parties. And, Jefferson didn't like that idea anyway. But yet he was part of that political party. Constitution never said there has to be political parties. But here we are. Now we've got two of them. And what were they again? The Federalists and the Democratic Republican parties. That's right. Okay. Now, with this, the framers of the Constitution shared many of the same ideas and beliefs about government, over issues that were very serious. And I'm just looking at my notes here, so if I put my head down, I'm sorry. I'm not disrespecting you. I'm not looking the other way. I'm just kind of looking at my notes because I can't see. All right. There was some conflict every once in a while, and that's when the parties started to make their appearance. All right. So there was a lot of differing views. And so I'm going to go through some of these views, and I think you should probably have them on your notes, but some of these things, unbelievable what they believed in. So you don't mind if I just read. You know what? I gotta get a sip of tea. Look at this here. It's nice being in. Well, I can't tell you where I'm at. I just can't tell you. But it's nice that I can get tea. Oh, I need it. That's good. All right. Now, for one thing, the Federalists, led by Alexander Hamilton, they feel that the government should be ruled by the wealthy. By the wealthy. Only those that had money. Well, what about the rest of us? I don't have much money. Do you? Do you have any money? No, we don't have any money. So why can't we have a say-so? Well, the rich people are smarter than us. That's why they're rich. Do you really believe that? Do you really believe that? I don't believe that. In any case. They also want a very strong federal government. Now, what do I mean by strong federal government? Government that has their fingers in everything. Just not that, though. Just not that. So I'm not going to come against Hamilton for that, because in a lot of cases we do need a strong government. How are other countries going to look at us if we don't have a strong federal government? Somebody that can stand up, somebody that has an army and a navy, and somebody that can make decisions right now. We need a strong government like that. We can't have it wishy-washy, and we can't have the states all doing whatever they think they want to. We need to work together. So the best way to do that is tie it in, come in the center. You ever seen a wagon wheel And a wagon wheel has spokes all over the place. Well, what's the very center of the wagon wheel? It's the hub. And the hub is that federal government. It keeps everything straight. It keeps it all strong. Without that hub, you don't have a wheel. You don't have a wheel. You got lots of spokes, but you don't have a wheel. Okay? So, the third thing they wanted is an emphasis now on manufacturing products. Manufacturing products. Now, I don't know about you all here, but manufacturing products, what were they manufacturing? Anything that they could. Anything that they could to try to sell it. Okay? So they were manufacturing things, and they wanted that all over the country. All over the country. I'm going to tell you what Thomas Jefferson thought about that in a minute. But if we could have factories from all the way to, well, what we call Maine today, down to Florida, we could have an awful lot of things here that we could make, couldn't we? And we could be selling things, we could be making things, and exporting a lot of things, and importing some things that we need to. So it's not a bad idea. It's really not. Also, they want a loose interpretation of the Constitution. Now, what is a loose interpretation of the Constitution? It means that when the Constitution says something, it really could be meaningless. I don't know if that's a good idea. But hey, who am I? I don't have money. I don't have money. I'm just Zeke. I'm just old Zeke here. But I'm just like y'all. Okay? So now let's go back to that again. A loose interpretation. You want me to read what a loose interpretation really means? I'm going to read it to you. I'm reading it right out of the book here. All right. It's the way that people, the Federalists, look at the meaning behind what the Constitution is saying. The meaning behind what the Constitution is saying, including the amendments that were added. And the first 10 amendments were called the Bill of Rights. They were called the Bill of Rights. I should have had that as an extra credit point, shouldn't I? But I think y'all knew it. So it was called the Bill of Rights. So therefore, they looked on the meaning behind each word in the Constitution. What exactly does that mean? Now, a lot of them boys should have known. They wrote it. They wrote it and they agreed on it. They should know what it means. Okay? So they would allow government that way to tinker with the Constitution any way they wanted to. I don't think that's a good idea. I think once it's written, it's supposed to be written, right? It'd be like if you wrote a story and then all of a sudden somebody changed your story. Well, you say, well, that's not the way it goes. Well, that's the way we want it to go. But that's not the way it's supposed to be, but that's the way we want it to be. Who says whose interpretation is right over what it actually says? There's a problem right there. But, hey, that's all part of what the Federalists believe, so let's just go with that. They also were very pro-British and anti-French. Pro-British, anti-French. Now, has the revolution in France already been happening? Yes, it has, since 1789. It has, okay? So we see what's happening with the French. They are out there right now. And they have somebody named Napoleon Bonaparte who is claiming to be their leader. We don't know much about this boy. We don't know much about him. All we do know is that the people really like him there. But does France have a lot to offer us right now? Not really. You know who does? England does. Oh, yes. England still has a king. And who's that king? King George III. Still. He will trade with us. And we can make money with them. And they will actually take our things in return. So we really need to go where the money is. And I see exactly what Alexander Hamilton's saying. The guy was smart. Go for the money. Go for the money. We need money. Guess what? Hey, folks, we're in debt. We're in debt. We owe a lot of money after that revolution. We owe an awful lot of money. So he's trying to say, let's go for the money and let the French decide what they're going to do. And later on, we can deal with them. All right. Another thing they want is a national bank. And we talked about that national bank before with Alexander Hamilton. All the federal money would be kept in one place. Not a bad idea. Not bad. Okay. So really all the money exactly it's coming into the federal government would be in one place. So National bank. But the national bank also would hold an awful lot of power. It's more than just a bank to hold money. They actually are loaning money to people and making loans, and the loans could be very subjective. Very subjective. Okay? They're only going to loan money to people that plan to pay it back because they can't make money without interest. Remember we talked about interest? So the interest can change. It can change from year to year and from time to time as long as you have that money. So that's really not a bad idea if you want to gain some money, and that's exactly what the government wants to do. That's why that big federal government is what the Federalists want. And the last thing I'll talk about is protective tariffs. We all know what tariffs are. What's the other word for tariffs? Tax. T-A-X. Tax. And tariffs are usually put on things that are going out or into the country for right now. For right now. There will be tariffs going out. But let's talk about the tariffs of things coming in. So as things come in, we can tax them. And then we push that onto the consumers, which are me and you. So when we go to buy something, like let's say this cup, okay? We're going to buy a gross of these, 144 of these. That's a gross, I believe. If my math is right. Mr. Trafficani, you'll have to check me on that one. But if I want to buy 144 of these from England, and let's say after they're taxed, after the tariff is put on it, they're $144. Okay? $144. The American ones are $156. And they're right down the street. Well, why don't I just go down there and buy them? Because the last couple ones weren't as nice as this. They didn't keep things warm, and they had bubbles in them. I'd like to support that guy down there, but money is money. Business is business. So I'm going to buy the 144 for $144 off the British. Well, now they put the protective tariff tax on it. What that means is they lift the tax up a little bit, and now these same cups are going to be $160, maybe even $162. Why would I pay more for these from England when I can still go down the street and pay 150, 56? I'm going down the street. Yeah, I can live with the bubbles, and I can just warm it up a little bit more at a time. So I'm going to buy the American-made things. Now I know that was a pretty bad example, but let me tell you what I mean. If we can raise the prices on things coming into this country, then people will be apt to buy more American-made stuff as long as the prices stay low. As long as the prices stay low. And when they do, more Americans are working. And when more Americans are working, guess what? There is more money in their pocket to be able to spend on other things that other Americans are making, and everybody gets to work, everybody has money, everybody spends. It's all good. How long can you do that for? Some things you can do it for a long time. Some you can do it for a couple of years and you have to kind of back off, or else those other countries aren't going to want to be trading with us anymore because nobody's buying their stuff. So it's a very slippery slope that you play with that protective tariffs. But it can work to get some money for the federal government. So all those things that I told you about what the Federalists believed in, they're not bad. They're not real bad, okay? There's a few little things that could be changed. But that's just me. All right, that's just me. And I'll let you think for yourself. So let's go to the Democratic Republicans. And they are run by who? Thomas Jefferson, right? Thomas Jefferson. Now, Thomas Jefferson is a little bit older than Alexander Hamilton. Not a whole lot older, but just a little bit older, okay? First of all, they feel that the government should be ruled not by the wealthy, but by the people. That means me and you. The government should be run by me and you. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't have time to go sit in some big fancy place debating these men. No, he doesn't mean that. It means that we should have a part in government. We should have a part. We can have representatives. That's what a republic is all about, folks. A republic that we elect people to be our representatives in our state and also in our federal, to represent us as representatives, as senators, and they can speak my mind. Well, the best they can. Nobody really knows this mind. I don't even think y'all know what is up in this mind, do you? I kind of wonder about it myself. Anyway, here's what they believe. They should be ruled by the people, and we should have a little bit more involvement in government. Not bad. There should be a strong state government instead of a strong federal government. How do you all feel about that? That the states should have a chance to rule themselves a little bit. Yes, they do rule themselves. Even today, they do rule themselves, but not completely, because there is government influence, isn't there? Well, maybe there's got to be a middle ground there someplace. All right, you got states over here, you got the federal over here. Can't we kind of meet in the middle someplace? Hopefully we can, because one can't have more power than the other. Sometimes it's just not good for you know who, us. It's not good for us. Okay. Third thing is they want an emphasis on agricultural stuff, not manufacturing things. Thomas Jefferson did not want big cities in the South. He did not want manufacturing in the South. Now, there was some manufacturing eventually, but not as much as up north. And why do you think he didn't want that? Because in big cities, you have pestilence, you have disease, you have crime, you have poverty, you have a lot of things when you have a lot of people, don't you? And when you get a bunch of people all crowded in together, they tend to not like to be with each other all the time. So, open spaces, growing things, and plus in the South, how long is their growing season? Forever. It's forever, okay? See where I come from, they're growing things all the time. I'm from Tennessee, all right? So in Tennessee, we grow things all year round, folks, all year round. So look, now in these colonies in the South, you've got cotton, you've got rice, you've got indigo, you've got tobacco, you've got all kinds of things that you can grow down there, and they're growing at different times and all the time. So can you make a lot of money on that? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Now, what are the manufacturing down there? Well, they're manufacturing as far as cotton mills. That's a manufacturing. Okay. There are some grinding mills, you know, that's about it. They weren't really making a lot of things, but there's some blacksmith shops. There was. And there was actually some places where they made ships down there. It wasn't all made up in the north, but he just didn't want them big old cities down there. Anyway, they believe in a very strict interpretation of the Constitution. What does that mean? Well, if you know what the loose one means, you got to know what the strict one means. The strict one means when it says it, it means it. Kind of like what the Bible says. When it says it, it means it. Seems simple enough. I mean, I'm figuring all those fellows, they all agreed on what the Constitution was saying and all the powers that the Constitution gives to the President, the Congress, the Senate, judicial. Then we have the Bill of Rights, which are the first, how many amendments? 10. And what they say, they mean. So a very strict interpretation of that Constitution. Funny they didn't see that strict interpretation when it came to political parties. Something to think about, right? Anyway, they are very pro-French and they're very anti-British. Now, you know, Thomas Jefferson likes the French. He spent a lot of time over there in France. Oh, lots of time. Okay? The French remind him of us going through that revolution and needing help. Now, they do have a leader come out of it, Napoleon Bonaparte, kind of like a George Washington. Not really. Not really. But he did have his good sides, okay? He did have his good sides. Jefferson figured they probably need our help. And the British are very, very tricky. Very tricky. Now, you remember that Jay Treaty? They were supposed to leave Northwest Territory. They didn't. They were supposed to leave in 1783. They didn't. So they're not supposed to be arming the Indians, but they are. So why would we want to deal with people like that? That's what Jefferson thinks. We should give our business to somebody more reputable, like the French. But the French are just figuring out who they are now. They're still French. They're still French. Trade is still going to happen, although they are a little mad at us because of that neutrality, the proclamation of neutrality. They feel that we slighted them. Now, we don't want to go backwards now, but we are dealing with the British on one hand, the French on the other hand, and there's pirates in between. So anytime we were out on the high seas and we saw one of those ships, we had to skedaddle and just get out of the way. We didn't have very many ships. No, we didn't. We didn't have very. Matter of fact, some of the ships that we did have after the Revolution, we sold them. We sold those ships. We didn't need a standing navy. Well, maybe it's time that we get one back. Okay, we're going to need a standing navy because we need to start protecting those merchant ships that don't carry any cannons except one, and that's only for signaling. A signal cannon. That's not any good, right? They also want state banks and not a national bank. Let's just keep the money from the states in the state. Whatever the state brings in tax-wise, we'll put it in that state bank. And if we want to send some money to the federal bank, then we can. Can't we have both? Can't we have a state bank and can't we have federal banks? National banks? Whatever you want to call it? I don't know. I'm not a banker. But it seems that the state banks will take care of their people a little bit more fair than the national banks. That's what they're thinking. They know those good old boys. They know what kind of money they're going to need, and they know what kind of loans that they can give them to make money for their own state. I see what the reasoning is. I see. So it all comes down to what I told you way, way back in the day, folks. Money. It runs everything, don't it? Sure does. So they also want this, not protective tariffs. They want free trade. Free trade, which means competition. Let me get my cup again. I want 144 of these. British will sell them to me for $144. Americans are at 156. You know what Americans got to do? Got to bring it down to 135, maybe even 140. Would that be enough for me to go and buy the American-made things over $4? Yep. Yep, it would. Okay? So it's competition. It's competition. And competition is good. It is good. While I got this in my hand, that is some good tea. All right, so let's move on a little bit. This bickering back and forth with these two political parties has got President Washington worried. Sure enough, does. So, mind if I put my glasses back on? It says, trying to keep a balance, Washington had tried to get the two men to fix their differences. Wasn't going to happen. Matter of fact, Thomas Jefferson put his resignation in. 1793, he's going to resign. But Washington writes him this note, and he says this: I believe the views of both of you to be pure and well meant. Pure and well meant. I like both you fellas, okay? And I need you to stay with me here. I have great sincere esteem and regard for you both. Coming from George Washington, that is high praise, folks. That is high praise. Great esteem and great regard. Washington's very careful who he puts in his inner circle. And he says, I ardently wish that there could be some line that we can mark out by which both of you could walk. Isn't there some way we can figure this out? Jefferson said, President, I can't do it anymore. I can't. Now, you got to understand the personality of Thomas Jefferson. He was not one to be confrontational, okay? He was not one to vocalize in a harsh manner, one to yell and scream. Where Alexander Hamilton was very debatable. Oh, he was very debatable, very, very good at it, too. He was a lawyer. Of course, Thomas Jefferson was a lawyer, too, but two different styles. And Jefferson said, it's draining me. I just can't do it anymore. So he resigned. Washington had to let him go. Had to let him go. Now, Hamilton would stay on for a couple more years and eventually resign in 1795. Washington's term wasn't over yet, was it? So he would resign in 95. Wow. Personalities. Personalities change a lot of things, don't they? Even between friends. Oh, yes, it does. Between friends and between family members, too. I'm sure y'all don't have the same personality as your brother or sister if you got one, do you? I know I don't. I know my cousin, Mr. Johnson, and we don't have the same personality, even though we are both good looking. Anyway, let's go on a little bit farther, shall we? All right, so we have these two political parties, and I'm getting at about 31 minutes, so I don't know when I'm going to stop. But, well, maybe I should stop right there because I'm about ready to tell you who's going to be the next president. Let me just go on with it, okay? Can I go on with it? Because I want to finish this up so we can go on next. I know I talk a lot. There were some newspapers that came out, and the Federalists had their newspaper, and the Democratic Republicans had their newspaper. So the Democratic or the Federalist newspaper, let me tell you, the editor's name was John Fenno. Make sure you know his name, John Fenno. All right, John Fenno, and he wrote a paper called the Gazette of the United States. And they praised Washington's administration. They loved Washington. They said everything he did was just great. And the AntiFederalists, or Democratic Republican paper, in 1791, Jefferson and Madison chose a man named Philip Freneau. Sound French? He is French. He is French. Now, Mr. Freneau sometimes even astonished Jefferson and put some things in the paper that he probably shouldn't about the president. He was embarrassed about it. He really was. But Freneau took advantage of that, and their paper was called the National Gazette. The National Gazette. They attacked Washington's administration, sometimes a little too harshly. And don't forget, 1791, Jefferson was still part of that administration. They attacked Hamilton. Jefferson didn't mind that. They attacked Hamilton. And they praised Jefferson as a patriot, as a statesman, and a philosopher. Was he? Absolutely. All three of those things. He was a patriot, he was a statesman, and he was a philosopher. So, we have these two papers. And if you would think there would be another paper, it was called this, Philadelphia Aurora. Philadelphia Aurora also supported the Democratic Republican Party. Now, wait till I tell you about this. People don't know about this. Its editor was Benjamin Bach. Benjamin Bach. And he was nicknamed Lightning Rod Jr. Lightning Rod Jr. because he was the grandson of Benjamin Franklin. Grandson of Benjamin Franklin. Now, let me ask you this question. Do you think Benjamin Franklin would be more of a Federalist or a Democratic Republican? Franklin didn't want to get involved. He really didn't. He was already old. By this time, he was not here. 1790, he was gone. But he had saw this coming before that. And I don't think he wanted to be part of either one of those, right? But his grandson carried on. Sure did. Sure enough. Now, they would eventually start slinging some mud. That's when I talked about how these Democratic Republicans and Federalists started talking about each other. Well, in that paper, the National Gazette, they hammered Alexander Hamilton, and they hammered George Washington, who was leaving office anyway. He was leaving office. Leave the man alone. Whew. Alexander Hamilton struck back. He struck back. Well, let me tell you what he said. He got a little nasty. Yes, he did. Throughout this Hamilton Jefferson, they engaged in a very nasty battle. And words in the two newspapers flew back and forth like lightning, some of them not very flattering. Okay, writing under a pen name, TL. TL, I don't know what TL stands for. Alexander Hamilton accused Jefferson of encouraging division in the United States, which, unless soon checked, may involve the country in all horrible types of anarchy. That's not very nice to say. That's not very nice to say. What was it true? I don't know. I really don't know. But I don't think so. I think he was just trying to vocalize a little bit. If anything, Alexander Hamilton had gone behind President Washington's back and talked to the British on his behalf of things that Washington did not agree to. That got him in a little bit of trouble, just a little bit. Of course, Jefferson was doing some things too, but not behind Washington's back. His support was straight out there, and Washington knew where his support lied. But as long as he was under Washington's administration, he abided by the rules. So, it's time for an election, folks. 1796, Washington has already sent out his farewell address. And who are they going to pick for president and vice president of the United States? They did a little different than they do now. But let me tell you, for the first time, political parties chose a candidate for the presidential election of 1796. Boy, it didn't take long when Washington said, beware of divisive political parties. It happened the very next year. He was right. He was absolutely right. So, parties chose, the Federalist parties, they chose John Adams to be president. And they would hope that Thomas Pinckney would be his vice president. They weren't really running mates, but he would hope that he would get the next amount of votes to be vice president. So that might be a little confusing, but I'm going to straighten it all up here for a minute. Now, the Democratic Republican candidate for president was, who do you think? Thomas Jefferson. And they wanted Aaron Burr as vice president. Now, why? You see, in the North, they all pretty much supported John Adams. He was a Massachusetts man, and they liked John Adams. And Thomas Pinckney, he was a good guy. Remember Pinckney's Treaty? Thomas Jefferson would get most of his support from the southern states. But Aaron Burr was a New Yorker. Now, why would you want to have somebody like that around him? Trying to get some of those northern states to vote for him. That's why. Aaron Burr was a good lawyer. Jefferson needed somebody who was a little bit more vocal. And here's how it comes out. So, with most support in the North, John Adams, he got them northern states. Most of the support in the South, Thomas Jefferson, he got those states. So candidates were chosen by something called a caucus, private meeting. So let me read that to you because that's one of the words I want you to understand what it is. The four candidates, put this right there. Okay, I'm holding that right there. The four candidates were chosen by each political party at a caucus or a private meeting. Held by congressional leaders because the Constitution did not mention political parties or ways of nominating candidates for president. Party leaders developed this caucus. They developed this private meeting thing. Now, the Constitution provided that the president and vice president would go to the two candidates with the highest number of votes. The highest number of votes. Without specifying which was for the president or which was for vice president. And in 1796, this brought about political rivals together in office. Well, what do you mean by that? Whoever would get the most votes would be president. Whoever would get the second amount of votes would be vice president. Now, 4 men were on that ballot. John Adams, Thomas Pinckney, Thomas Jefferson, and Aaron Burr. Any one of those four could be president. Any one of those four could be vice president. Whoever gets the most votes is president. Whoever gets the second most votes is vice president. You see what's going to happen here, don't you? Well, John Adams gets 71 electoral votes. 71. He becomes president of the United States, the second president of the United States. Thomas Jefferson gets 68 votes, electoral votes. He becomes vice president of the United States. Oh my. We've got two men that think completely different. But now wait a second. There's something good going to come out of this. They were good friends. Oh yeah, they were real good friends. Abigail Adams thought the world of Thomas Jefferson. She really did. She really did. And when his wife died, she was a great comfort, sending letters and notes to him. John and Thomas, good friends for now. But you put them in the same political arena and sparks are going to fly, okay? They just are. They disagree on things, but they know they got to remain friends, but they disagree. Now, can you disagree with your friend and still be their friend? Of course you can. I do it all the time. But you still have to remain friends. Don't let a disagreement break you up. Just disagree and let it go. What's that saying? Agree to disagree? I'm going to agree to disagree. That's okay. You can do that. Now, John Adams, as being the second president, follows right along with what George Washington did when he took his presidency. Now, there was something in that presidential pledge that I had you do that I left out. I didn't leave it out on purpose. Only for this time, I did. Once the pledge was said, George Washington said, "So help me God." Now, that wasn't part of the pledge. He said that on his own. When John Adams took that pledge, guess what he said at the end? "So help me God." When every president in this here country of the USA has said that pledge, everyone at the end has said, "So help me God." Even if they did it twice. It's something that George Washington did, and they honor that man with that. They really do. They really do. So if we ever hear a president that doesn't say that at the end, I'm getting a mite worried. I might get a mite worried. I just might. I'm just telling you my own self. We should honor what George Washington did. He was the first one. And he set what they call a precedence, an example for all these other presidents to follow. John Adams now would try to follow that. He wanted to remain neutral. He tried not to get involved in any silly wars that the British or the French would throw on him. But next time we talk, oh my, there's going to be some trouble. There's going to be some trouble. We're going to talk about something called the XYZ affair. Sounds kind of fishy to me, but it's going to be fun, and I know you're going to like it. So I want you to do this for me, would you? Would you go to that site that Mr. Johnson told you to go to? I'm going to tell him that you're going to do that so I don't get in trouble. And read what he has to tell you there, okay? And I hope you learned something today. I did a lot of talking. Let me ask you something. Which political party do you agree with? Alexander Hamilton's side or Thomas Jefferson's side? Write me. Let me know. I'd be interested because they've both got some great views. And if you don't agree totally with either one, tell me if you'd be in the middle. That's called being an American. All right, y'all. I'll see you next time. And be safe and be good. Help somebody out today, okay? and tell them you love them. Bye.